November 2009. I graduated law school May 2010. I was interviewing everywhere. I'm just because the economy fell. I had an offer to work for the summer at one of the big law firms that was going to pay me $150,000 an hour. I screwed that interview up because I asked them some dumb question like, "So y'all represent plaintiffs, businesses sue businesses?" And they looked at me like, "He don't understand a damn thing about what we do." I didn't. I bombed the interview, but they was going to pay me $160,000 starting. I mean, I'm like, that's more money than my dad. When I filled out my first FAFSA, if I'm not mistaken, my dad had $11,000 he made $11,000 my senior year of fucking high school. That's how much reportable income my pop had. And they offered me a job. They offered me a job 7 years later, $160,000 a year. I was ready to jump out the window. But what ends up happening is I sit on a panel. Me, Jamira Burley, Mark Lamont Hill, Judge Paula Patrick, Shaka Fatah was there, but he wasn't on the panel. Right. Terry Woods, who wrote True to the Game, and it was one more person, I can't remember. But what ends up happening was Kenyatta Johnson to it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting on this panel, and what ends up happening is Kenyatta and Mark Lamont Hill is telling my story. Shot 5 times, locked up 6 times, from West Philly. Grew up around the corner from where Seth Williams grew up. Seth Williams heard my story, and he's like, and then Kenyatta said, yeah, Kevin is leaving to go take a job at the Bronx District Attorney's Office. And Seth Williams said, over my dead body, I need people just like you with your story. I'm hiring you because you've been to jail 6 times, because you've been shot 5 times. And I want you in my office to change the perspective of what it is for folks that look like us. Damn. And I came in and I was in the office. I was there for...
You had power, man.
Well, hold on. I was there for 2 months and they wrote an article. They leaked every juvenile record I had to the press illegally. I was there for 2 months and they had leaked all my records. They tried to get me fired. They called me a criminal. So I got raked over the coals immediately. Like they literally, like judges were saying, we can't believe Seth Williams. Seth Williams was doing so well when he first started. The first negative article about Seth Williams in any newspaper in the United States of America was about him hiring me as an assistant district attorney, because the words were, he's a superstar in court, but prosecutors are supposed to be above reproach. How can we punish anyone if he is allowed to be the person giving out the punishment? That's what they said. And the thing is that, you know, it took me a while to get comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because at first I'm trying to prove myself, which means I'm in there. And to be honest with you, I had a very fundamental lack of understanding of the criminal justice system. Even though I had been a defendant in the criminal justice system, I didn't really understand where the inequities were. I didn't understand that cops lie, which is crazy. Even though cops would lie on me, I always thought that was just part of the game. You know what I mean? I expect the paperwork to say that I served that fiend. I expect that, even though I didn't. I expect the paperwork to say that it was a positive identification or that they read me. We in the streets, we never looked at it as, you know, unfair for the cops to lie. You know what I mean? I expect that if I resist arrest, I'm gonna get charged with aggravated assault. You know what I mean? I knew that when the freaky Jason cop used to pull us over, he used to always try to like put his hands in places that he wasn't supposed to. You knew that it was certain cops, if they jumped out on you, they was gonna fuck you up. But we never looked at it as inequity. It wasn't until it was the game. You know what I mean? Normal. Like it was the game. I mean, 2 of my favorite cops to this day, Billy and Rolex. No, he said, I give y'all 60 seconds and then I'm gonna hawk y'all down. Rolex, fast nigga in Southwest. He take off after you. We all running, we laughing and joking. Whoever get caught, they beat their ass. It was a joke. It was a game. And the thing is that there was also a mutual understanding. It was Lucci and Schubert, 2 highway cops. They started off on the burglary detail in Southwest. And they understood, y'all don't shoot. Y'all will shoot if y'all need to, but I know y'all don't want nobody creating no drama around here. It's a TI track doing my job. He said, hustle, how you do it? We got wives, we got wives, jobs, kids, moms, he said, we ain't the one running in your house trying to hurt, we trying to make a living. It's one of my favorite songs by T.I. called Doing My Job, where he pretty much said, like, we hustling out here. We do not want to shoot. We do not want to kill. We want to have commerce. You know what I mean? And I was always a diplomat on the street. So what ends up happening is like, for the most part, to my benefit, you know, the cops always was like, yo, long as ain't no shooters out here, you good. our heat comes when it's shooting. It was really never no shootings. And when there was shootings, we out there slapping dudes on the back of the neck. Yo, what's wrong with you, dog? We don't do that around here. I never forget one of our old heads had a connect that was from 7th Street, like 7th and Huntington. And that was a heroin block. So niggas would go down there and sell heroin for 24 hours, and they'd make more money selling heroin down 7th Street than they made on 58th Street. So one of the young boys came back down and he started trying to push heroin on 58th Street. And the old heads pulled up like, you'd have thought somebody shot John F. Kennedy. Yo, you out here selling heroin? We don't do that around here. And he's like, what you mean? He's like, no, man, you start selling heroin on this block, this row of nice houses will be empty in 3 weeks. We cannot put heroin in this neighborhood. We don't do that around here. Like, wasn't nobody pushing no Ronnie G on 58th Street in 0206. Nowadays, you go down there, they crystal meth, and you see empty houses, and you see burned down houses, you see kids without parents. And it's like, I remember like that protectionism. And you know, for somebody outside looking in, they're like, what's the difference? It's all poison. But that's the game that I was trained on, is that like we had a certain level of decorum and respect that we thought was appropriate, participating in any sort of oppression, because it was just a part of the game.
That's beautiful.
I mean, it's not beautiful because
perception is because
what ends up happening is my best friend got smoked by a cop my third year as a DA.
Outside then, you look at the villain for the streets, but it's like, no, you were somebody that's the opportunity. That story you just said about $5 an hour versus $2,000 an hour.
Probably on the autism spectrum. You know what I mean? Like, but definitely different. Like, you know what I mean? Like intellectually different. All there, they could function, but definitely never been off the porch. Their mom had issues. And this old head had been standing on the corner. He had dropped his car off. What she didn't know is that he had dropped his car off at a mechanic shop. And he had just had 2 knee replacements. And they told him that he needed to walk. So he was walking around the block over and over and over again just to get some traction on his knees, because his physical therapist told him to walk. The mom freaked out, said that he was on some Freaky Jason type time. This man stalking me around the corner. She runs it.
What was going on.
Ran in the crib, told her sons, this man stalking me. They come outside, sit on the porch. They see him walk by 2 more times. He got these glasses. I'm talking about put 3 more lenses in front of it. That's the look that he got. He looking at them from the porch. They like, what you looking at? And he like, he an old head, and he wasn't a weirdo. It just, in that set of circumstances, he used to wear, something was weird, he wore contacts or something, but because stigmatism fixed, like he had a surgery on his eyes, he was wearing these particular glasses. They, talking about stabbed him, beat him down. I mean, old head ain't do nothing wrong. And mom sicked her sons on old head. He called 911. They come, they stole his keys, but it was on some more like we beat him up and took your bag, but that's a robbery. The defense attorney thought that like the dude was legitimately a creep. And, you know, I'm meeting with the dude a hardworking man. He worked at the sanitation department. He got up every day. He was the dispatcher for the sanitation department, which means that, you know, trash trucks leave out 5 a.m., which means he got to be working at 3 a.m. every day. Yeah. He had a beautiful wife, beautiful family. And I remember this lady who sicked her sons on this man. She, let's just say, if you put his wife and her in a beauty competition, it wasn't close.
Right.
And they ran with the defense of he was a creep and he was on some Freaky Jason type time, and everything they did was justified. It was defense of others, self-defense. And I had to really just say, like, yo, this isn't, you could have just stayed in the house and called 911 if you really thought boy was a Freaky Jason. Because he never approached her or nothing. Never approached her or nothing. He had just had 2 knee replacements. He couldn't chase.
How could a defense attorney even go with that argument? That don't even make any sense.
The clients didn't want to plead guilty. They weren't never going to plead guilty. They were convinced that they were right. Right. And excellent lawyers on the other side for the most part, but they had been paid money to do something. You know what I mean? And I cooked them.
As you should.
Cooked them.
As you should put them in a blender.
Cooked them. It was, and I mean, excellent lawyers. I mean, we all came to mutual respect, but cooked them. But
real quick, I don't want to cut you off, but I just love how you apply all the things that we say out in the street, put them in a blender, cook them, barbecue them, all of that. But you from a academic perspective,
Yeah.
applying it to something that
It was relatable.
yeah,
Yes.
like it's not, so that's
I'm
stuff
just
that
trying
you
to make.
hear.
I try to make it more inclusive because I try to
Yeah.
create spaces where people understand that this is for us.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't think that this is for us.
So why don't they teach us law in school? I mean, we know why, but
They do.
Talk to us.
No, they do. I mean, we just didn't realize. Like, I mean, you take a history class or you take a U.S. history class, and they teaching you the Constitution and the amendments, and and it's like I laugh. People are like, "Man, they didn't teach us this in school." I said, "I was there. You was there too. You just wasn't paying attention." Like,
But you see, this is the thing though. Like,
he
I think that
talking.
they teach us history, yes, and that is definitely law for sure. But when you were a kid in school, they don't, at least not where I went to school, they don't exclusively say that these are skills and stuff that you were learning that you could apply to law school if you so choose to go to law school.
Mm-hmm.
Like that connection is not made. I don't know if it's made in other schools.
No, it's
where
not.
You pay more
It's
taxes,
not. It's
but-
not. It wasn't even made for me in college necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I got to college thinking law school was going to be a debate class. You get what I'm
When
saying?
did you realize that? Oh shit, I learned this in.
I mean, I knew it all the time. I mean, I knew it from just like a history perspective. Like I knew that, when I was in high school, I knew that when I was learning about the Magna Carta, that they was teaching me about, and the thing is that I'll say this, Central was different than Bartram.
Right.
Like at Central, we got electives. We started off at biology, chemistry, then physics, and then fourth year you had an elective, anatomy and physiology, which was something that you could typically take in college.
Yeah,
Or you
that's
could
what I
take
took it in
you could take AP classes and get ahead and start taking college courses in advance. When I left Central to go to Bartram, there were no courses for me to take with the seniors.
Central got study abroad program too, don't they? Yeah, they.
But there were no courses for me to take with the seniors because I had already took physics. So if I took physics in 11th grade and they teach physics to 12th graders, I'm in a English as a second language material science class with a whole bunch of kids who are Liberian, Asian, East Asian, South Asian, all that, Southwest got a nice little immigrant community. And it's me who got 4 years, I got biology, and they are teaching to these kids how to do basic math, but they also kind of teach English. I took, at Central, we take calculus, trig, advanced calculus, and then something else, I forget. Oh, no, we take algebra, geometry, trigonometry, calculus. But when we get to Bartram, they stop out at, like, I think at trig or like geometry, because they didn't have enough students to fill up a calculus class or an advanced calculus class. So what ends up happening is I end up in a fucking remedial math class with people who don't know how to read. And that's because, so while I'm saying at Central, yeah, I got Magna Carta, at Bartram, I don't know if they even had students who had been advanced enough. And that's something that I always talk about, is that, like, when you educate to the masses. That's the thing about public education, is they educate to the masses. If you got 98 kids who can't read, the 2 kids who can't read are going to fall behind because you're teaching to the 98. And I think that at a lot of schools that I experience is that they're teaching to the 98, they're not teaching to the 2 kids. And that's where I always had problems in school.
The kids who are, the few who are up at the top, they suffer.
Yeah, I mean, you need, so they've tried to change that with programs like they used to have MG.
Should they end up teaching the kid, those few kids at the top end up teaching
The
their
other
classmates.
kids, yeah. Oh, trust me, I've been there.
Yeah,
Like, the vicious switch with your classmate and let him mark your test. You got MG classes, you have special admit classes, but a lot of the times those things start to create inequity. So like they create schools that special admit. So it's like, oh, these 2 kids that's intelligent or that's doing a little bit better, that are maybe neurodivergent, they may be a little bit autistic, they may be a little smarter because they just catch on to things more quickly, they may be on the spectrum. You put them into a program that's for smart kids. But then what happens is all of these people start swinging in from the suburbs. Like, oh, we got a school that's smart and cheap, that's giving up a good product. And then all of a sudden they start moving back to the city, and then instead of that school being for the 2 black kids or the 2 well-achieving children, you end up with a school like Penn Alexander, which is a school in West Philly that the University of Pennsylvania started, where now the home prices where that school is,
done went up.
not the taxes, but the home prices have went up because everybody wants to live in that catchment to get the access of living in the city and sending their kids to a relatively excellent school. So, you know, at the end of the day, the only way you're going to change it is by it's in-house. Like you're never going to be able to outsource the basic education, at least in my opinion. Schools are going to work hard to do it, but at any time, listen, it's not necessarily a business, but it's just the economics of it. It's just like listen, Penn Alexander was such a good school that like the school next to it starts to do well because the kids that can't get into Penn Alexander, they're like, well, damn, we got to put our kids somewhere. I didn't win the lottery. I got to send my kids to another school. There's a school 4 or 5 blocks away. Now that school doing really well.
Alexander?
43rd and like Spruce. It's like down, I'm thinking like how many blocks down from Copas? No. On Penn campus, so Spruce on the north, on the south side of Market.
The reason why I say we come into business because, like, you know, now you have like KIPS and Masteries taking over all the schools.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely a business.
Yeah, and I work for KIP, and what I want to say about that, I love KIP, but even when I work for Mastery too, I work for them too in the past. They have people that's pull the trouble students, like the struggling students. I mean, right, one-on-ones and small groups. But for the ones that's passing, it's nothing for them. So the ones that's passing are really bored because they're bored, and they're gonna wind up being kind of how you were, as far as like you were very intelligent, but you went to the streets because you were kind of. I thought you were advanced. Like they didn't have the tools to keep.
Yeah,
it's happening in that
and
class.
They build onto that with like there's this false narrative of kids who live in struggling neighborhoods or underserved neighborhoods need to be in school from 7 in the morning until 4:30, 5 o'clock at night. And that's not the case in a lot of other neighborhoods where people are thriving, where their homes cost more. They out of school at 2:30.
2:30.
You know what I mean? So you can take advantage of other extracurriculars and activities and sports.
Come on.
So like those type of things, because that will deter a kid from going to school. I've been in this joint from 7 o'clock to 5.
Everybody's trying to figure out this problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem that's not unique to and it's not a problem that's unique to African American schools. I mean, the Public Interest Law Center is a strategic law firm that filed a lawsuit against the state of Pennsylvania for underfunding education, and they specifically chose rural school districts because the rural school districts have been so underfunded, and they got schools where you got kids that, I mean, their schools are really doing badly because they don't have the number of people to support a tax base for a school at all. So it's really it's a problem that I think a lot of people are trying to figure out as we evolve. I mean, our entire industries have evolved. I mean, regardless of, well, I won't say regardless of it, but there's even at the top with Trump, they're saying we want to bring manufacturing back. And what they're saying is that we messed up with this college prep environment where all of our children are being taught college prep. And they're saying we shouldn't be doing that. And you hear a lot of people saying bring vocations back to the schools. Yeah, but the reality of it is that, the economy doesn't look like either of those. You know what I mean? Like you got 80-year-olds saying we need to bring back automotive technology in schools. And it's like, you can't even get the technology.
Tesla.
Like how, if the way that they engineer vehicles now, you can't get the $100 million worth of equipment and technology and upskilling of the teachers and the facilities to teach kids automobile tech. It's not the same. They're like, we need to bring the trades back to the schools, carpentry. I was like, those jobs don't look the way they did when you were in school. Mom, pop.
But the crazy thing is, I'm glad so that you say that. Being in education, I see the beginning of that right now. Like there's meetings that we've had all types of things where it's like now it's no more college or bus. It used to be like college or bus. You go to college, if you don't go to college, then you crapped out. Now the whole thing has changed. The message has changed now. It's like vocational now. You got more options now. So like charter schools are now saying you got more
stocks,
options.
arts.
All these different things. You got CHOP programs getting into schools. All these different things are now happening. And so that I never knew where that was born from, like the beginning of that. But then when you're saying what you're saying now, I understand how it's now trickling down to schools. It's happening. Yeah. Right now it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, and it's coming because the economy is begging for it. They want workers. They want the economy needs nurses. The economy don't need nobody else writing, a book on, it's so many books that just come out and it's like, how to wrestle a bear in a gummy suit. Like, my dissertation is on, the history of the word we as used by, and it's like, the economy don't need no more of that. I mean, like, a lot of people go to school thinking they're going to become a professor, et cetera. And, and there's a lot of and there's a real big need for correction. It's like, we tell this joke. So I'm a trustee at Kutztown now. Governor Shapiro and first Governor Wolf, then Governor Shapiro appointed me to be a trustee at the university, and we have a philosophy department, or at least we had a philosophy department. And philosophy is that's a very intelligent major, and it's a very valid major. And I think most people would say that every American university needs a philosophy major, because that's what school doesn't have a philosophy major? This is the study of thought. But you got 8 philosophy professors and 2 philosophy majors.
And 20 perceptions.
No, listen what I'm saying. You have a program where there are 2 students and 8 professors. There's no demand for it.
Okay.
Like at many of the universities, Penn, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, they have a major called the classics. And then they started realizing that nobody wanted to study the classics.
I understand the purpose of having, so I know when I was in school,
Beethoven and all that.
Well, the classics is like Shakespeare and studying classical writing. Or the idea that people, it's a switch. For the last 20 years, what we've been hearing in education, STEM. Everybody been talking science, technology, engineering, mathematics, because that is what's funneling social media, technological advancements, et cetera. But what that did was it left out the liberal arts, philosophy, art, languages, because people why I need to study Spanish for when I can go on my Google and put it in a Google Translate. So what you see is now a lot of the universities are losing students. They don't have students that are studying these things. They're studying what can get them money. They're studying finance. They're studying engineering. They want to go work in Silicon Valley. The people who are on the front page of Fortune magazine or the Wall Street Journal, none of them majored in philosophy. So nobody wants to be a philosopher. And the people we worship, I don't worship anyone, but the people we worship, none of them are philosophers.
Philosophers never represented as somebody you want to be, though.
Exactly.
You never see any space that a philosopher is being depicted. It's never a person that has a lot of money, that lives a luxurious lifestyle. It's always a very meek person.
And that's not the world we live in now.
That's not the world.
You can't.
That's not popular on social media.
I was about to say, you ain't gonna get 100 likes on your philosophy book.
Not at all. It's not understood.
We did a lot of talking, and I definitely want to get out of here without even talking about currently. So speaking of evolution, like I said, when I met you 10 years ago, you were assistant DA. Tell me what you're doing now. What's your title now in law? Where we going at now?
So I'm a partner at a firm in the city of Philadelphia. I do what's called catastrophic injury work.
Okay.
Catastrophic injury is just any injury where an individual suffers just a life-changing injury. So loss of a limb, loss of life. I also built a civil rights practice. So it's a catastrophic civil rights practice. People who went to jail for crimes they didn't commit, people who have been shot and killed or injured, maimed by police officers, government people.
She went from assistant DA to civil rights.
Yeah, I mean, my best friend got shot and killed by a cop in 2013.
Yeah.
And that really, I fumbled that case when his family came to me and told me what he went through was illegal, or if it wasn't illegal, what he went through was a violation of his rights or something this was before Trayvon. And Trayvon Martin changed everything when it came to criminal justice, because it was the first time people were the police, overwhelmingly. People think George Floyd changed. Nah, it was Trayvon. Because before Trayvon, none of the distrust of law enforcement was very minimal. And after Trayvon and the way that they handled that case, it just led to a level of public scrutiny of law enforcement that I had never seen before. What ends up happening simultaneously is, because at the end of the day, a lot of my desire to be successful is born out of the fact that I grew up really poor, and then even when I was in the streets, I was always a share the wealth type dude. And because it's no fun having money alone, it's no fun. And again, I grew up in the state property era. I grew up in the Rockefeller era. We don't go nowhere without a squad of people. Like the idea of it being just you and nobody around you doing well is very not kosher. But I read an article when I was in maybe my second year of practicing law, that said the $2,000 per hour lawyer. And I remember reading it and going, what? And it's funny because I referenced the $3,000 per hour lawyer. That's where they at now. And I remember going to one of my mentors and being like, do we know anybody that make $2,000 per hour? And he gave me a name. And I'm now law partners with the guy that he gave me, that name, whose name he gave me. But the point is that I started identifying areas of law where the leverage, where you could actually create that sort of value. And then from there, not only from a desire to make money, but also a desire to do the right thing, I mixed those two things together. I found a space where I could do that. The first practice area that I identified was what's called white collar crime, which is I was a white collar criminal defense lawyer, which is they try to be fancy and say white collar crime is like crime committed by professionals, people who have a collar. But the reality is white collar crime is anybody who can pay you $1,000 an hour, no matter what. They got a DUI, a rape. I mean, like the lawyers representing Diddy right now, those ain't white collar crimes, but his lawyers are white collar lawyers. You know what I'm saying? And then I in Pennsylvania, in Philly in particular, but Pennsylvania as well, we're eds in Med City. So a lot of the investigations that I was involved in involved educational institutions and medical institutions. So I'm representing doctors who might be freaky Jasons. I'm representing doctors. Freaky Jasons is crazy. Yeah, but freaky Jason, I mean, everybody understands. All you gotta do is say it. You're like, yeah, he's freaky Jason. Like nobody's gonna question what I meant when I said that the doctor was too much into his freaky Jason stuff. And they'd be like, oh wow, yeah, okay. Doctors who was overprescribing pills, physician offices that were being investigated for their prescribing practices with OxyContin and things like that.
Percocets under the table.
Exactly. And then what started happening was I was representing them in criminal matters, but then at the same time they would get sued because let's say, for example, you gave somebody 100 Percocet pills that shouldn't have got 100 Percocet pills. And then that person overdoses and dies, and then that family sues the doctor or the pharmacy. So he's criminally being investigated by the feds or the attorney general's office, and at the same time, the family's suing him. So I'm doing both at the same time, representing him in both contexts. And then one time one of my clients got sued for a freaky Jason situation, and the client just dropped the ball on a individual who ended up criminally convicted of all types of freaky Jason stuff while he was at work with patients and with coworkers, like hands in places he ain't supposed to put his hands. Right. And a friend of mine he's now a friend, he was a friend back then as well, he represented some of the victims of that behavior, and they sued my client, and we resolved the matters before anything like became public. And I just remember thinking to myself, damn, like he just shook us. I'm talking about he put us in a blender, and it was like we were thanking him for taking our money. I'm talking about like, thank you so much for taking our money. Like, listen, do you want more? Like, do you want more? And I just remember thinking that. So I had gotten that experience, and then I happened to run into one of my law partners, and I was the president of the Black Lawyers, which is really important, the Barristers Association.
President of Black Lawyers.
For Philadelphia, the Barristers Association of Philadelphia. And it was important because I brought my law partner in to meet with them, and it's really just understanding how all of this is full circle. It was my community-oriented position, which allowed me to have a platform to pitch not only myself to my law partner, but also to pitch what type of work we were doing in our community, which then ended up getting me a job offer. So, you know, I try to practice, I try to tell people all the time that all of this is interconnected. You know what I mean? Like,
Your evolution is crazy.
but all of it is interconnected. I mean, and now, I mean, I was reading an article.
Read a book, man.
No, I don't. When they write books about you, you're done. Always remember that. Either you're done or you're about to go run for office, and I'm never running for office. But I always tell me, one of my goals is that I got to kill it hard enough that somebody will want to write the book about me. I mean, everybody,
again.
but that's it. I want to kill it so crazy that like when all said and done, like they're paying someone to write the book about me instead of it being me taking time. Like I'm too busy to write a book. If I'm writing a book, I mean, if I'm writing a book, I'm not doing something right.
Yeah.
Damn, man.
So listen, real quick. Let me. So it's only two things I really want to ask you. You mentioned something earlier, way earlier, about there not being a space for like young black folks, young underserved folks who recognize like we are poor. Is there anything for like young people who aspire to be like a lawyer, but in like our underserved neighborhoods? Not something that's like you got to be affluent to get. But something that's like, oh, I ain't got no money, but I want to be this.
No.
Like, how can I get connected with Kevin Harden Jr.? Like, how can I be connected with these type of people so that I can then have guidance to get where I need to be?
I mean, I don't think it exists. I don't think it exists because the caveat that I said is that it's the ambitious side. There's nothing, sure, if a young person has the patience